Hello, everybody. You are very welcome. Yom Yerushalayim Sameach. Thank you for joining us for this very special celebration of Yom Yerushalayim. Unfortunately, we are still in the virtual realm, but I don't think that's going to stop us from celebrating the momentous day when Jerusalem was reunified. And we have some great guests with us tonight who's going to take us through some of the highlights of Jerusalem's fascinating journey. With that, I would like to quickly take you through a little bit of housekeeping. We want to hear from you in the chat, but this is a webinar, so when you go into the chat, you will see there's an option to either send a chat to all panelists or all panelists and attendees. If you send a message to the panelists, our panelists will be able to see them, but not the general attendees in the audience. So select all panelists and attendees and let us know where you're from. Say hi, we want to hear from you. You can also, throughout the webinar, type your questions either into the chat or into the Q&A box, and we will get to those at the end. So thanks you once again for joining us. It is now my great pleasure to introduce you to Ilan Kaplan, the chairman of Mizrachi South Africa, to do an official welcome and to kick things off. Over to you, Ilan.
David, thank you very much. Yom Yerushalayim Sameach, everybody. Welcome. On behalf of all of us at Mizrachi, my executive director, Stacey Dembo, as well as our good friend, Michael Seif, and everybody at the South African Zionist Federation, welcome, and thank you for being with us on this very special evening. It's no coincidence that both Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim fall in this period of Sfirat HaOmer between Pesach and Shavuot. We obviously count 49 days between Pesach, when the Jewish people became a nation for the first time, building up momentum all the way to Shavuot, where we were privileged at Har Sinai to have Matan Torah, to get the Torah. Now, I think we can draw a definite parallel between Pesach and Yom Ha'atzmaut as a national holiday, a holiday of the Jewish people becoming an official nation, as well as another parallel between Yom Yerushalayim and Shavuot. Yom Yerushalayim for us as a Jewish people, after 2,000 years, to come back to Jerusalem, to come back to Har HaBayit, to come back to the Kotel HaMa'aravi, that was the spiritual rebirth of the Jewish people, just like Shavuot, and the time of giving of the Torah, was the spiritual, coming of age of the Jewish people at the time. We've got an incredible speaker tonight, Yaakov Selavan. Yaakov, I'm personally looking very excited, very forward and excited to hearing about what you have to say. But I must tell you, Yaakov, I've noticed that you're an officer in the famous and iconic 188th RDF Armor Brigade, otherwise known as Barak, the Lightning Brigade. And just to tell everybody, just so they know about this famous brigade, this is a brigade that has been looking after the security of the state of Israel in the northern border and primarily on the Golan Heights since the establishment of the state. This is a brigade that took the brunt of the Syrian onslaught on the Golan Heights during the Yom Kippur War and single-handedly, with a few tanks left, pushed over 1,000 Syrian tanks back and off the Golan Heights. And as far as I'm aware, Yaakov, this is also a brigade that was the first one to adopt the Merkava tank, if I'm correct. So just speaking about the army, we mustn't forget tonight the debt of gratitude we have to Colonel Motagur and his Tanchanim in liberating Yerushalayim and liberating the old city. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to all the wonderful congregations and shuls that have partnered with us from around South Africa. Yom Yerushalayim Sameach. Thank you, everybody, for being with us.
Thank you. Yaakov, over to you.
Okay, let me just make sure my screen can be shared and I'm off. Okay, wonderful. There we go. Okay, so first of all, good evening, everyone. Good evening, folks. Before I introduce myself, I just want to say 4.5 years ago, as I was getting prepared to leave the IDF after almost a decade of service in the 188, as Ilan said correctly, I was thinking about my future. What do I want to do? And I realized that I want to be a storyteller, or call it a public speaker. So I started learning from the best speakers in the market, in the field. I would watch them online. I would go to lectures because I wanted to see how does it work. And one of the first things I learned from public speakers is that wherever you go, you always start with a lie. What is this lie? You always tell your audience how excited you are to be with them tonight, right? It will sound imaginary, but a year and 2 months ago, I was actually in a speaking tour in the United States. 8 days, 8 different cities. Every day I landed in a different city. It can be Miami, Florida. It can be Boston. It can be Atlanta. It can be New York. And every time I came somewhere, I was so excited to be there. It was my childhood dream to speak in Boston / Jacksonville / Miami. After I said that, you'll have to believe me. I'm being very honest right now that I'm very excited to be with you tonight. And I know you don't believe me after what I said, but I'll tell you why I'm more than excited tonight. And I'm taking you back just almost 7 years ago to the summer of 2014. The 188 Brigade is actually down in Gaza. We are fighting in what's called Tzuk Eitan, Operation Protective Edge. Bloody hot days, July, August 2014. And after a few days of battle inside Gaza, we come out to refresh ourselves, to get ready for the next mission. And I'll never forget that afternoon. It was, I think, a day before Tisha B'Av. Suddenly, a truck comes to the field. Remember, we're on the border with Gaza. The truck is full of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and it has a big sign on it that says, "With love from the Jewish community of Johannesburg, South Africa." And aside from the fact that I ate 8 pints of Ben & Jerry's in one day, I think that's a world record, I must tell you that it was one of the greatest moments, not even my service, in my life, because I felt Jewish unity. Suddenly, my soldiers were like, why are these guys from South Africa caring about us? We understand why the people from Jerusalem and from Beersheba are sending us ice creams. Why are those people who live in South Africa, what do they care about us? And you explain to them, I explained to the soldiers, guys, we're not just here for ourselves. We're protecting the whole Jewish nation. And they feel we're protecting them. And this is their gratitude. And I must say, first of all, as one of the highlights of my service, every time I have someone from South Africa, even if it's one seminary girl, which I had last week, a seminary from Jerusalem, there were 50 girls. I heard one was from Johannesburg. I told her the story. And secondly, in honor of you, the moment we finish, I got here some good Ben & Jerry's to celebrate Yom Yerushalayim. So with that said, now you can believe me, I'm very excited to be with you. And for me, I have a lot of gratitude, a lot of hakarat tov for the community in South Africa. And just by the ice creams, I know how great you are. My name is Yaakov Selavan. And today, as Ilan mentioned, I serve as a reservist, as a major in reserves in the famed 188 Armored Brigade. Today, I serve in reserve as the unit's COO, Combat Operations Officer, and also as an IDF motivational speaker. I won't talk about that tonight, but we're going to have a question and answer session in about 40 minutes. So I can talk about that also, of course. 2006 was my last year in the Army in the 188 as the unit's COO. So I advanced a lot in the past 5 years. And I told you I took part in different combat operations, including Protective Edge, Tzuk Eitan. And for those who are parents to teenagers here, after all of this record being set, I just want to give you a little gift. I told you, you guys send me ice cream. So I'll give you a little gift. That gift is called hope. This is me in 2006. Okay, so there is hope. Your little punk at home, he'll be okay at the end. Don't worry. Now, what I want to do with you is listen. It's going to be a bit challenging for me because this program is in honor of Yom Yerushalayim. I was born and raised in the old city of Jerusalem. The Western Wall was my backyard. My parents came from the United States, so I can appreciate even more than my friends who were born here and that they take it for granted. And Yom Yerushalayim, for someone who's lives in the Rova, in the old city of Jerusalem, you can understand it's a very special day. You feel it. You feel Jerusalem 24/7. And 8 years ago, due to my military service, serving as a captain then in the 188, we made a decision, my wife and I, to move up north, to be closer to the base. Because, you know, as a captain in the Armored Corps, you don't go home too often. So my wife moved up here so we can be closer to each other. And we fell in love with this region. We moved here to the Golan. I live in the Golan, if I haven't mentioned so far. The Golan, let's put it on a map for those who might not know. So if this is Jerusalem here, then I live here in the northeast of Israel, in the Golan Heights, what we call Ramat Golan. We're raising our 3 little daughters here. And I must say that, that it's very different suddenly. It's very different celebrating Yom Yerushalayim from a new perspective. What I want to do with you in the next 40 minutes or so is to take you on a very, I'm already warning, a very intensive journey. You're going to have to buckle up and hold on tight because we're going to go through almost 2,000 years in 40 minutes. And I want to share with you my perspective on Yom Yerushalayim, which, as I said, as a Golan resident, it's changed in the last 2-3 years, I would say. As I get older, I guess you can say, or more mature. So, okay, I got the note here about the black thing, so I'll hide my my panel each time. So, friends, as I said, please hold on tightly because it's going to be very intense. Of course, feel free to ask in the chat if anything is unclear. And I want to start with talking actually about the Golan. So I'm shifting now. We're in a Yom Yerushalayim program, but from this point on, I'll start talking about the Golan. Maybe you'll understand the connection you will understand the connection as we move along. So when I talk about the Golan, then here, let me just get rid of the floating panels. Great. When I talk about the Golan, so of course, those who have visited the Golan imagine the beautiful canyons, the water streams, the archaeological sites. Maybe you can even understand why I traded the narrow streets of the old city of Jerusalem in raising my girls in this nature. But now let's talk about why the Golan is so important. So friends, number one, real estate, location, location, location. Let's look at a map for a second. I'm going to bounce back and forth with maps and myself. And I want to show you our first map for tonight. This is a map of the ancient roads that cross the Middle East. And if you look here, you'll see, I'm putting here, you can see there's a road here crossing the deserts from Babylon, from Persia to Israel. Now remember, friends, Israel is located between 3 continents. We have Europe, right? We have Asia, and we have Africa. And you have these crucial roads, and this road is very dangerous. It goes through the desert. You have 2 more roads. One is here marked in red, which is called the King's Path, and it goes here, down here, goes into Israel, then goes through what we call today Jordan. The second road is marked here in purple, and that is what we call the Via Maris. The Via Maris, which is the path of the sea. Now, if I put now the Golan on the map, remember I circled the Golan before, note that both ancient, crucial, historical roads go through the Golan. But that's not it. Okay, that's not it. The second thing is, remember, what do we call the Golan? We call it the Golan Heights. When I sit in the highest region in Israel, in the Golan, I'm controlling 2 crucial things. Remember, we're in the Middle East, a dry region. Water is crucial. And when I'm sitting in the Golan, up in the mountains, I'm controlling the waterheads of the Jordan so-called river, and I'm controlling the most important water source in the region, which is the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret. So that will explain to us why the Golan is so important. With that said, friends, now let's start our journey in the time tunnel. And I'm taking you back. This is not a history class. Remember, I'm a storyteller. I'm not a historian, even though I study a lot of historical things. I'm a storyteller. And I'm giving you my story of Yom Yerushalayim through my perspective. And the story in my eyes starts in the year of 66, the Great Revolt. The Jews revolt against the Romans. Remember, Judea is a province in the Roman Empire, and the Jews now are going to the Great Revolt. When the revolt begins, the Romans decide to go straight to the heart. What's the heart? What's the essence? Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. But they fail. The brave Jewish guerrilla fighters manage to push away the Roman Empire soldiers. And when Vespasian, the Caesar, and Titus, his son, the famous Vespasian Titus come, they decide to take a different strategy. They look at the map and realize, okay, I couldn't take the heart, but maybe I can start with the periphery. So Jerusalem is here. I'll go up north. I'll start from the north, from the Galilee and from the Golan. And here we meet. And now is the first time where we meet the capital of the Golan in those days, which is the ancient city of Gamla. Here it is in front of our eyes. By the way, Gamla is 3 kilometers away from my house. When I stand in my backyard, I see it. Now, what do we need to know about the city of Gamla? The city of Gamla is called Gamla, Gamal, a camel. You can see by the shape. It is the most, I would say, protected, and I'm not sure about the word in English, mitzudah, fortification. Fortified, maybe, is that the word? City in all of the north of Israel. Why is that? Because from 3 directions, okay, from the east, from the south, it's on a cliff. It has cliffs, and especially not in the year of 67, you cannot climb up these cliffs, meaning from 3 directions, I have the topography, I have natural protection. The only way that's open for attacking towards, I would say, north, towards the north, is this part. And what you do here, you put walls. Here are the walls of the ancient city. You have a few defense lines, a few walls, and that gives you perfect protection. That's what they thought. The Romans take over city after city in the Galilee. There is no mercy. They kill people, they slaughter people. And just before Sukkot, just before Rosh Hashanah, in the year of 67, they come towards Gamla. Now, guys, let's just give you a feeling. In the year of 67, what does it mean? Someone who's protecting the city of Gamla. I'm giving you a video from Jerusalem that emphasizes it, but just look at this. Look at the mighty Roman artillery. They start bombing, shooting heavy stones at the city walls. They're shooting, as you see. This is intense. Now, the first 2 Roman attempts to take down the city failed. They failed because the people protecting the city, first of all, the first attempt of the Romans, they shot those heavy stones, what I call artillery as a 2021 military officer, at the walls. They miscalculated the wind that day, and we'll get to the wind. The wind is crucial in this battle. And so the ballistra stones flew back at them or dropped down too early. That failed. Finally, when they get through the wall, the Jewish fighters start retreating. And at some point, they turn around. Remember, they're going up that mountain. And they start going from top to bottom. And they surprise the Romans, and the Romans fail. A few more days pass by. And the Romans come again. They break down the wall. Things are not looking good in the city. And a day after Sukkot, on Simchat Torah, that year, the wall is broken down. And the end of Gamla is a day later. The Romans invade Gamla. They kill over 4,000 Jews. And the last 5,000 fighters, this might sound familiar to you from somewhere, they realized that they're not willing to fall in the Roman hands. If they die, they will die as free people. And they run to the edge of the city, to the cliff, and that's their end. Some people say they jumped off. It's like the unknown story of Masada, the little sister of Masada. Some researchers say they tried escaping down the cliffs and that wind brought them down. But the bottom line is that the capital of the Golan, of that region, falls. That's the end of the Galilee. And then the Romans start moving down towards the heart, towards Yerushalayim. 3 years later, as we know, the second temple is destroyed. The first line from the north fell down. Now you can come to the center. Before we jump thousands of years forward, I'll just say in the year of 67, we lost Jewish independence in the Golan. There are arguments. Some people say the Jewish settlement continued. The people in the villages around Gamla surrendered, and the Romans didn't kill them. They stayed there. We have, by the way, from the Talmudic and Mishnaic period, right after during the Second Temple, after the Second Temple, we have over 30 ancient synagogues here. That's more than a quarter of the synagogues from that period in Israel. So there was a very large Jewish community here. Just understand what we're talking about. But since the capital fell, Jewish independence is lost. Before I jump 1900 years forward to 1967, this week, I want to show you two things that were found in Gamla when the IDF redeemed the Golan in 1967, this week, 54 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first. These are pieces of jewelry that belonged to Jewish women who lived in Gamla and were killed by the Romans when they invaded. Please look at these pieces of jewelry. You can try imagining that Jewish lady running away from the Romans and her necklace falls down. But I'm not going to explain to you why am I showing it to you now. Let's keep that for the end. Here is the most significant archaeological finding maybe in the whole Golan that was found from that period. It's an ancient coin. I assume none of you read ancient Hebrew, so let me help you. 3 words in Hebrew. Legeulat Yerushalayim Hakdosha. For the redemption of Jerusalem, the holy. Friends, the people who live here, and I claim it's the most beautiful region in Israel, have a purpose. They have a meaning. There is something they're fighting for. There is something they're willing to die for. They're not living here because they have great views. They're not living here because we have the best water heights in Israel. They live here for the redemption, and they're fighting here in the Great Revolt for the redemption of the heart of the Jewish people. Jerusalem, the holy. And remember that coin and remember that message, because now we're jumping 1900 years forward, and I hope you guys are with me because it's intensive. In 1967, or let's take a step back, 1948, when the state of Israel is established, we know Jerusalem, at least the old city of Jerusalem, is split. The old city of Jerusalem is under Jordanian control, and the Golan is under Syrian control, and those days are hell in northern Israel. Remember, the Syrians are sitting up high on the mountains, and they're harassing the Jewish farmers living by the Sea of Galilee. Every 45 days, listen carefully to these numbers, every 45 days for 19 years, that's the statistics, the Syrian army bombs the villages under the Golan. Israeli poets write songs about the girls growing up in bomb shelters in the kibbutzim under those dark mountains of the Golan. And it's a bit like Gaza today, the Gaza envelope, right? They wake up in the morning, they decide to bomb us, and that's it. No schools, no work, nothing. In those long 19 years, which life here in northern Israel are hell, there's only one Jew, by the way, who actually is in the Golan. Anyone take a wild guess who am I talking about? Anyone has Netflix here? So the only Israeli or Jew we know of that visited the Golan those days is the famed spy from Netflix, Eli Cohen, who here in the middle, who visited the Golan 3 times in those years and gave Israel crucial information, which Israeli Prime Minister Levi Eshkol said in 1967 saved the lives of hundreds of Israeli soldiers. By the way, it's not the topic today, but let me just give you a little spoiler. It's not because of the eucalyptus trees. 1967, tonight, 54 years ago, this iconic picture which I know, I think it was Mizrachi, South Africa, that brought these 3 brave paratroopers. Just, I remember a few years ago, Zev Krengel sent me a picture of it. And 54 years ago, finally, after thousands of years, Jerusalem is united. The 3rd day of the 6-day war, the paratroopers, together with other units, redeem the heart of the Jewish people, the old city of Jerusalem, the Western Wall, the Temple Mount, and there's euphoria in Israel. The next day, the leadership of the people living in the northern Galilee, right under the Golan, come to Jerusalem. They come to the Knesset, and they tell the Israeli government, friends, it's now or never. The Syrians have been bombing us not just for 19 years. From the first day of the 6-day war, all of these people were under fire. The Syrians were firing nonstop. And there's a casus belli, right? We can open a war. We can now attack the Syrians because they started. And the people tell the Israeli government, if you guys don't use this historical chance to take away the Syrian threat from those dark mountains of the Golan, it's the end of Zionism in northern Israel. A center, a heart can't function without the periphery. If you guys want the periphery, if you want the heart to function, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, we need the north to be able to function. We are your first line, and we cannot live in this reality. And this is now or never. There's a lot of pressure. It takes them a day. And in the 5th day, the IDF goes up the Golan, up the slopes of the Golan. It takes the IDF 3 very tough battles and then 2 days of just driving through because the Syrians just run away. And within 2 days, the Golan returns under Israeli control. As I told you, the excavations begin. Over 30 Jewish villages and synagogues from the Mishnaic and Talmudic period. And the people coming up the Golan have a feeling, wow, we came home. Because we're now 1900 years exactly after the brave fighters of Gamla were leading the Jewish community here. Jewish independence returns to this region. 6 years later, the 1973 war, my unit, the 188, is protecting the border. We're not going to talk about that now. Friends, if it hasn't been intense so far, what I want to dedicate our last 15 minutes or so is to talk about our place today as Jerusalem's first line of defense. And I want to start it actually with talking about the end of the 6-day war. We have, the Arab League gathers up in Khartoum. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing it with a South African or English accent. In the capital of Sudan, Khartoum, there's the Arab League convention. There's the Khartoum resolution that says the famous 3 no's. Friends, please remember this. I'm building here a puzzle with you, and every little piece is important. No peace with Israel, no recognition of Israel, no negotiations with Israel. And now, remember this resolution, and let's talk about Israel's most dynamic and unexpected border, which I'm talking to you 4 miles, 7 kilometers away from. Friends, I'll need you now to be active on the chat. I live, as I said, 7 kilometers away from the border with Syria, looking that direction. And as you know, for the past decade plus 2 months, there is a civil war happening in Syria. Can anyone use the chat and tell me who are the players in this war? Who are the actors in the arena? Go for it. I'll use the chance to take a sip of water. You can private message me. You can write everyone. Okay, Assad, Russia, Iran, ISIS, Iran, Russia, Iran and proxies, ISIS. Okay, Iran, I see. Okay, Syria, Assad, okay. The Iranian proxies, that's a very big name. Okay, Russia, Iran, okay. Syria backed by Iran and Russia. Okay, all answers correct. If you guys don't mind, let me just add a few in. Okay, you guys said Assad, the government. Turkey, Russia, Iran, Hezbollah. Okay, so far I have 5. Let me add in the Kurds. Let me add in the United States of America. Let me add in Al-Qaeda. ISIS, I think someone wrote, I didn't say it. I'm already at 9. Let me add Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries. I'm at 11. China, they're also involved. Jordan, Israel. I think you understand where I'm going. If I keep on going, I'll lose all of my time on mentioning the actors. I didn't even mention the rebels, what we call. Friends, the rebels is roughly several hundreds of organizations at the high point of the war. Now it's down to only a few dozens, okay? Things are more stabilized. To make things simple for you, since we have 15 minutes or so to explain this part, let me just show you a map of interest of Syria. It will explain to you, I got it from my colleague, it will explain to you everything. Who are the actors? Who's connected to who? What are the different coalitions? You got this. You got the whole Syrian civil war. 1 second, let me just take away my floating panels. Here we go. Friends, here you go. Okay, I don't see your faces, but I'm assuming everyone's nodding their heads. Things are very, very clear, right? It's a bloody mess. It's a bloody mess. We're talking about 6 different wars happening here. We're not going to talk about all of them tonight. Let me just share with you one perspective. Here's a map of Syria, just so we see where we are here. Here's the Golan. You can see different colors. You can see different flags. Different countries are involved. As we said, a bloody mess. With that said, I want to now do a little zoom out, and I want to focus on the greatest Israeli challenge in Syria. And that is an actor that you kept on mentioning here. That is Iran. Let's take a step back for a second. Okay, we spoke about, forget the Ben and Jerry's. I spoke about the ancient battles of the Golan in Gamla. I gave a brief talk about 67, very brief. And now I'm at 2021. And I want to explain to you the greatest challenge we have. In order to do that as simple as possible, as short as possible, as clear as possible, if I can explain the whole thing, I'll use one word, sushi. The greatest conflict in the Middle East these days is sushi. Not the sushi you're thinking about. I'm talking about the religion of Islam. I'm talking about the Sunni branch and the Shiite branch. Without going into too many explanations, let me just tell you that in Islam, 85% of the people are Sunni, only 15% are Shiites. The main difference between them is that 1400 years ago, after the death of Muhammad, the establisher of Islam, there was an argument who should be his successor. The Sunnis said it needs to be one of his righteous students. The Shiites said it's a matter of dynasty. It must be someone, one of his relatives. And so they argue about who should be the successor of Muhammad. They can't agree. They go to war like we do in the Middle East. They kill each other. And the Sunnis win big time. They annihilate the Shiites. They kill the Prophet's son-in-law and grandson. And ever since, they are the dominant leading party in the Muslim world. And the Shiites are oppressed by them. Iran is Shiite. And that's the most dominant Shiite country. And almost the rest of the Muslim world is Sunni. Now you'll say, 1 second, Yaakov, how is this all connected to what you're talking about? Friends, it's connected because first of all, it affects our region till today, these clashes. Many researchers claim that almost every war you see in the Middle East is around that, especially when after the First World War, the European empires came and divided the region without looking into religious issues and tribal issues and just made these artificial fake states. Syria, Lebanon, it's a mess. You have Sunnis, you have Shiites. It's a bloody mess. They don't know how to get along. And you shove them together in the same border and say, guys, take your flag. You're Lebanon, you're Syria. But let's talk about Iran. In 1979, the Ayatollahs, right, the Islamic Revolution, Iran, can you guys hear me? Someone wrote me here, there's no sound. Can you guys hear me? Please just let me know.
I can hear you fine, my side. Yaakov.
Okay, so it
Thank you.
might be a
Keep
problem
going.
with some specific person. Okay, I apologize then. Friends, in 1979, the Islamic Revolution in Iran, right, the radical religious regime, the Ayatollahs, they take over. It's not a secret. The Iranian regime says, friends, this is the first stage. Our second stage will be to take over the Muslim world. And the third stage will be to be the Persian Empire, which you can say controls the world or is dominant in the world. And we will get rid of those filthy Sunnis and will bring back the leadership crown, which belongs to us, to the Shiites, the real successors of Muhammad. If you guys think, by the way, they don't like us, the Muslims, they don't like each other much more, the Sunnis and the Shiites. Now, the Shiites want to expand. They want to do what they call export the revolution. And they realize they have a problem. They're Shiites. Most of the people around them are what? They're Sunni. Can they get along? No. The Iranian regime understands that they need a common interest. What's the common interest? The common interest, my friends, is the holy city of Jerusalem. Who controls the old city of Jerusalem? The filthy Zionist. Here's my common interest. And they start confronting Israel. In 1984, they established their most successful proxy, Hezbollah. And what happens here? The Sunnis look around them and say, 1 second, we're losing to Israel, right? No Muslim/Arab country has ever defeated the Zionists, the Jews, right? They all failed. The 6-Day War, big time, 1973. Some have made peace with us. The rest never beat us. Who's the only undefeated Muslim army? Hezbollah, supported by who? By Iran. Suddenly, people in the Sunni world, which are mad about Israel controlling Jerusalem, the holy city of Jerusalem, the third holiest city for the Muslims, are now interested in cooperating with Iran. Now, friends, I want to show you a map of the Iranian, you can see here, of course, Qasem Soleimani of blessed memory. Look again, he's standing by the Western Wall, by the map of Israel. You can see here, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, Jerusalem. It's a motive that keeps on going. Look at how successful this Iranian effort is. They are dominant in many countries around us, even in Gaza. Radical Sunnis, Hamas, is supported today by Iran. That is because they were successful in creating a common enemy. And it's an octopus. Look at them. They're all over the Middle East. What I want to do with the few minutes I have before we start the question and answer session, of course, I have to close up my connection to Jerusalem and Yom Yerushalayim. I'll very briefly, very briefly, show you the Iranian interest and how it does challenge us. And then what I want to end with is talk about our reaction, the Israeli reaction. So if I look at the Iranians, I can very briefly map 4 main goals. The first goal is the nuclear program. I think that's obvious. We're discussing it in these days, so I won't go into that, but we understand that is the greatest threat to the Jewish state. The second thing is what we call the PGM project, the Preceded Guided Munition Project. It's a strategic Iranian effort to take missiles. Today, for example, Hezbollah in Lebanon has over 130,000 missiles, rockets that can cover the whole state of Israel. But friends, these are statistic weapons. I shoot 100 and I pray that one of them will hit Tel Aviv. If I can make these missiles, smart missiles with GPS, preceded guided munition, I can send them directly by GPS to different spots. One missile to the Knesset building, one to the stock market building in Tel Aviv, one to the main train station. I can shut down the state of Israel with several missiles. This is already a strategic threat to the state of Israel. And they're working hard on it. And one of the main arenas they're working in is Syria, as we'll see in the map in a second. So I said the nuclear program. I said the missile project, 2 strategic threats. Now let's see the other 2 that connects to what I'm talking about. So we're talking about what we call the Shiite crescent, the Shiite axis, and what we call Lebanonizing the Golan. Friends, please look with me at this map. I'll hide my floating meeting panels. Let's look at the Middle East. And let's look at the Iranian plan. Remember the stages. Stage 1 is successfully completed. The radical Shiite regime controls Iran. Now let's take a look west. For those who don't know, Iraq today is under a very heavy Iranian influence. It's an Iranian proxy. Lebanon, who's the most dominant party? Hezbollah, an Iranian proxy. Gaza, Hamas, an Iranian proxy. I don't see on the map here what's happening in Yemen, just south, the Houthis, what we hear about in the news recently. Friends, look at the map and look at Iran. From Tehran to the Mediterranean and to the border with Israel, there's just one last piece, which is the keystone to complete an axis, a corridor from Iran to the Mediterranean, and that is Syria. And if I get Syria, all that's left for me to do is go down to Jordan or to Saudi Arabia or whichever country I choose, including Israel. By the way, it's probably not going to be us. It's going to be Jordan, Saudi Arabia before. The Shiite crescent, the Shiite axis is King Abdullah of Jordan. And when you talk about Lebanonizing the Golan, what they're trying to do the past few years, especially since 2018, the last 3 years, is create a front line. We said they have a front line in Gaza. They have Lebanon, where they have terror tunnels, and they have dozens of hundreds of Syrian villages, of Shiite villages, which people there are being used or support Hezbollah. They're being used as human shields. They're hiding their missiles and rockets in those homes. Guys, South Lebanon is a fortress today. When we go into there, it's going to be a mess. They have 130,000 rockets. They want to take the Lebanese model, successful model, because there is deterrence between us and them in the Lebanese front. We can't do whatever we want there. And they want to copy paste it into Syria, meaning they want my house here to be under threat like the houses on the Lebanese border or in the Gaza envelope. And here is where we conclude with the Israeli reaction. What can Israel do with, I'm talking about tactical options and also strategic options. What are the tools Israel has to face this threat, which you understand is a strategic threat? So you can use the chat. I mean, there's 2 obvious tools, right? The first obvious tool, of course, is military. Use your military force. Friends, first of all, this morning, an Iranian ship blew up on the shores of Syria. No idea how it happened, but I'll just tell you, my friends in the Israeli Navy are very, very busy in the last few months. The second thing I'll say is that this past Friday night, Iranian troops in eastern Syria, meaning by the Iraqi border, think how far that is from Israel, were mysteriously struck from the air. This sounds maybe crazy to you, but this is almost a weekly routine. In the past few years, the IDF conducted, or someone conducted, forgive that slip, there have been hundreds, if not thousands of attacks, over 1,200 attacks against Iranian targets in Syria. From deep inside in the east, in the desert, to my backyard here, the Syrian front. Sometimes, friends, I sit here just behind this window. I have my barbecue. I have a barbecue with my friends. We hear suddenly noises in the sky. Sometimes we'll even see the blur of missiles flying towards Syria. We take out our phones. By the way, we don't stop eating. We're still eating the steaks because we're used to it. We take out our phones. We start looking on Facebook, on Instagram, on Telegram, and you already see on social media the rumors which Iranian target just blew up. That's our life here for the last few years. We see it in front of our eyes. So the military option, of course, is very clear to you. The second tool we have, just like every country, is diplomacy. Take the American sanctions, which brought down the Iranians on their knees. And without going into political views, I'll just say they were holding on and hoping the American administration will be replaced, and it was replaced. If President Trump would win the elections, the Iranians, that would be very bad. I'm not going into what does it do to America, but I'm saying as in the Israeli perspective, it was too good to be true. Those sanctions were pulling Iran out of Syria. They didn't give up on their plan, but they were running out of money. They couldn't even pay their fighters here. The amount of Hezbollah fighters till a few months ago here in the Golan was the lowest since 2011 due to those sanctions. So that's diplomacy. Of course, we work with the Russians also. We have some different agreements with them where we warn them before we strike in Syria. They close their eyes very tightly. We bomb the heck out of the Iranians. And then, of course, they condemn us on the news. But I want to take you to a very interesting diplomatic effort. Friends, remember what Iran did to us. Iran used us and Jerusalem as a common interest, a common enemy, as there's, I would say, a step in the door, right, to the Sunni world. And in the last few years, with what's happening just here in Syria, and the people in the region are seeing what the Iranians are doing here and how they're taking over this region, they realize they're next in line. Saudi Arabia, even Qatar, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Sudan, all of these countries said, oh my God, all of these years, we thought the Jews are the problem. Now we understand the greatest threat are the Shiites. Who can help us against the Shiites? The Jews. We turned Iran into the common interest, which we used as our step in the door to the Muslim world. It was in the closet till just a few years ago. Friends, remember that the 3 no's in Khartoum, Sudan, 1967, 54 years ago. In a few weeks, it's going to be 54 years. So here's another Khartoum resolution, the Abraham Accords. Sudan signs a peace agreement with Israel. And this past December, I hosted the first delegation to the Golan from Bahrain and from the United Arab Emirates. They came here to the Golan, and I stood there on the Syrian border, giving them a briefing, and we were standing there talking about our common enemy, our common interest. I must tell you, it was more than common interest. I felt love there. My friend, my neighbor today brings baklawas, traditional Arab, Oriental Arab pastries from Dubai. Golan Heights Wines. It's the first winery in Israel that signed a deal with hotels in Dubai. I get pictures from my customers. They're in Dubai in a hotel, Hilton Dubai. They're sending me pictures of Golan wines, by the way, excellent wines. So that's diplomacy. And again, if you would tell me 10 years ago, we'd have 4 peace agreements. We'd be hosting delegations from here in Khartoum, the big symbol for the 3 no's, right? Israelis will be welcome. I will tell you guys, you're on crack. But this is what happened here. And it's a lot because of what's happening in the region. So we have diplomacy, we have military. I'll very briefly give one more thing, which is baby diapers. And I'll make it short because I want to conclude and leave you questions. So I'll say our third way to confront Iran was passed through baby diapers. Yes, through baby diapers. You can stop Iran with baby diapers. Any idea how? Friends, we're living here in the Golan. From March 2011, when the Syrian civil war begins, in the first 2 years, Assad was still here by the border. And then from 2013 to 2018, the region was controlled by ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and a bunch of radical groups. And this region was in a humanitarian crisis. There's no government. There's no functioning medical systems. And the people here need help. We stepped in. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, conducted Operation Good Neighbor, in which we took over 6,000 Syrian people into Israel to get treated in Israeli hospitals. We treated tens of thousands of more Syrians by the border. Every day we sent into Syria. Here are just a few views, but here we go. Look at this. This is from the headquarters of Operation Good Neighbor. Baby diapers and coats being sent into Syria. I can go on and on with the numbers. How is this connected to stopping Iran? First of all, I want you to look at why we did it. We did it because we're Jewish, and you see what it says here. We cannot be silent anymore. We cannot stand by. We're Jews. We cannot stand by when we see people suffering. That's the first reason why we did it. But the second reason why we did it, to stop Iran. These baby diapers, these medicines, these coats helps us till today to stop Iran. Because when I spoke about Lebanon and Gaza, so we spoke about the 3 rules of real estate: location, location, location. What are the top 3 rules for a guerrilla/terror organization? It's very similar. Locals, locals, locals. It all relies on local support. If I don't support you, I won't recruit my children. I won't allow you to recruit my children. I won't allow you to dig tunnels for my schools, for my mosques, for my homes into Israel. I won't allow you to use me as human shields. Every time a Western army met a guerrilla group in the 21st century and back, right, Vietnam, Philippines, etc., 20th century, every time, who won? The side that was able to reach out to the locals. Because it all depends on local support. A Western army with international warfare law, it's almost impossible to beat such an organization when they're using their people as human shields. If the people don't support them, they'll spit them out. So what did we do? We used that window of opportunity for 5 years, and we reached out to the locals. And we gave them diapers and baby formula and food and medicines and coats, and we saved their lives. And there's a whole generation growing up in Syria knowing we're not the devil. Now, friends, some of them used us. Some of them are against us today. But I'll say, first of all, from the intelligence perspective, that we see in the last few months that the civil war is rising again in the region. They're trying to push the Iranians out. They're telling Assad, we don't want the Iranians here. The Iranians are fishing by the border. We don't want them here. And the Iranians want to use the common interest card, right? But look, we have the common interest, the devil. We are not the devil anymore, right? We're not the devil. And if you think I'm a bit naive, then before finishing my conclusion line for Yom Yerushalayim, I want to share with you this picture. And this is a picture drawn by a 7-year-old Syrian girl. I took this picture in my friend's office. He was the commander of the operation. And this is a 7-year-old Syrian girl thanking Abu Yaakov, the father of Jacob, or the son of Jacob, for saving her life. A 7-year-old Syrian Muslim girl with this beautiful flag. Again, it's imaginary. We did the right moral thing. This also served our interest. Friends, I want to end and open it for questions. I owe you a closure for Yom Yerushalayim. How is this all connected? I interviewed a major general, one of the greatest military thinkers, not in Israel, worldwide, Major General Gershon Cohen, a few months ago. I said to him, sir, what is our greatest weapon against Iran? What's our greatest tool? A major general in the IDF, what would you expect him to say? Talk to me about missiles, drones, Air Force. He said to me one word: community. Sir, community? Military affairs, something? He says, Yaakov, I want you to think for a second. You were in the army for 10 years. You do a lot of reserves. I was in the army for 30 years. I want to tell you a little secret. You know what's stronger than armies, than soldiers? Civilians. Civilians, community. Soldiers come and go every few months. They have deployment, they're deployed, they come, they go. They don't have roots. They don't have, their boots are on ground, but they don't have roots in ground. Civilians who work the land every morning, their vineyards, their cherry farms, their fields, who open up startups, who pave roads. That's the greatest defense you have for a region. People, community. Friends, We have a very resilient community in the Golan. However, we're only 25,000 Jews living here. It's Israel's least populated border. And I want to end with saying the following. Why are we here? I had a group a few days ago, my first group from the United States from abroad after a year. And they asked me, they said, sir, this place is beautiful, but when we were driving through the roads, we noticed they're pretty crappy. They're very narrow. I said to them, you're right. And they said, we wanted to stop at a shop to get some coffee, to use a bathroom. We didn't see any. I said, you guys are right. They're very far from each other. He said to me, sir, you have 3 little girls. How far are you from the nearest hospital when your wife needs to give birth? I said to them, an hour. What's the closest mall? You want to go shopping, buy some clothes? 45 minutes. How are the jobs here? I said to them, there's not enough. You know, the income in the Golan is the lowest, average lowest income in all of Israel. And on and on. And they said, wow, poor guys. I looked at them, I said, guys, don't feel bad for me. When you go to be the elite forces, the elite units, you work the hardest. I'm not here because I love the views. I love the views. I love the nature. I'm here because I am Jerusalem's first line of defense. That is my purpose. That's my essence. I'm here at the end of the end of the end of the country because someone needs to be here, because my community is the greatest answer to the Iranian threat. My daughter came today back from kindergarten in honor of Yom Yerushalayim. It happens every year. She got chocolate coins. Here's the coin. If it doesn't look familiar to you, it's because it has on it a sticker, this chocolate coin. Okay, it's chocolate. You'll have to believe me. But it has on it a printing of a coin that was found here 54 years ago, which was printed by Jews over 1900 years ago in the ancient city of Gamla. And my daughters grow up from kindergarten knowing why they're here. For the redemption of Jerusalem, the holy. We have a purpose. We have an essence, and that's why we are here. And from the youngest age, that's why we're raising our girls always. That's why the story of Gamla and this coin is part of our essence. That's why we are here. And I think each and every one of us needs to ask themselves in Yom Yerushalayim, not what happens in Jerusalem, where am I? What's Jerusalem for me? What's my job in the redemption of Jerusalem the Holy? Friends, I hope, wow, I'm a bit late. Thank God you're not British. I'm like 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late. So friends, questions and answers. I'm here for you. Go for it.
Yaakov, firstly, thank you so much. Before we get to the Q&A, I'm sure everybody, we have 250, 260 attendees hanging on your every word. Please give Yaakov a huge round of applause in the chat, a virtual round of applause. You said at the very beginning, you wanted to be a storyteller, and Yaakov, I can honestly say that you have definitely become a storyteller. So thank you so much for that wide-ranging discussion. And I love that it was so current as well, because Jerusalem is still alive and thriving and still very much a busy city. So firstly, I also just want to say thank you to you and all the people like you over thousands of years who have dedicated themselves to protecting what you said is the heart, the city of Jerusalem. So thank you for that. And we will be asking you a little bit of a question about your IDF experiences first. But okay, if I may, just before the questions come in, you said you grew up in the old city of Jerusalem, which is a place that has a history thousands of years old. Very briefly, I'm just curious, what is that like? And what do you think that experience in your youth affected you?
Wow. I'll be honest with you. When I was 8th grade, I was such a mess in 8th grade. My parents sent me abroad to live a year by my grandparents. I come into the school in Atlanta, Georgia, and everyone was all over me. You're from the old city of Jerusalem. You live by the Western Wall. what's the Western Wall for you? I looked at them, I said, it's where I go eat sunflower seeds with my friends Friday night. I took it for granted. I don't know, that's what we do, right? We go, the praying was boring for me as a child. So, you know, I sat there eating sunflower seeds. And people looked at me like, and when I came back to Israel after that year, suddenly I started appreciating it. And when I moved here to the Golan, suddenly I appreciate it even more because I saw what does it mean to people. And growing up, I can say today, my father's a tour guide and archaeologist. My older brother is also an educator. He educates through archaeology. You're walking on history. I showed you this chocolate coin that's falling apart here. My parents at home, when we had to build a bomb shelter and we wanted to use it as a storage room, we found ancient coins from the Bar Kokhba revolt, just under us. We grew up touching history, and it's an incredible feeling. It's today when I take my daughters and we walk around the old city and I show them where I grew up, and they're so proud. Yom Yerushalayim today, they went to kindergarten saying, everyone's talking about the old city. My father's from there. My grandparents still live there. They live just by the Western Wall. They're so proud of it. And for me, it's an incredible thing. Just, you know, knowing I grew up, it's the most intensive place on earth. You can understand why I needed the nature here after that. It's just amazing. You really get a very strong historical conscience when you live there. There's no other way.
Wonderful.
Can I answer a question that I saw?
Please, of course.
Someone
sure.
asked about the necklace. Thank you so much for noticing. Friends, we're talking about a stronger community in the Golan and bringing here more people. So the first line north will be stronger. We had a historical moment in March 2019. New diplomacy, which has already gone from the world, but the most famous Twitter account in the world tweeted about the Golan, right? The American president recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan. Why is this such an incredible moment for us? Friends, again, I'm not talking about the president himself. I'm not going into politics. The most famous Twitter account in the world until it was shut down wrote the words Golan Heights. You guys know where it is, I'm assuming, after this talk. How many people know about it in the world? How many people the following days did the following act on Google and wrote, what the heck is the Golan? What's important? And suddenly, international media was coming up to the Golan. I became one of the leading spokesperson here as one of the only, our mayor doesn't know a word in English, our deputy mayor doesn't know, the CEO, no one knows a word in English, they call me. And the guys from all these channels are coming and they're saying, we wanna interview you by the border. I said, guys, 1 second, it's great to be by the border, but have you guys ever, you drove 3 hours from Tel Aviv. Have you ever tasted the Golan wineries? Let's go have some good, we have here 26 boutique wineries, award-winning all around the world. Come drink some wine. Have you guys seen our grass-fed cows grown here by the border? Have you seen the ancient synagogue we repaired using cutting-edge technology after 1,500 years after it was destroyed in an earthquake? Come, let's take you around. And suddenly, all around the world, there are reports about the wines, about the steaks, about the archaeology. And this was a huge boost to our economy and opening new jobs. So again, without going into politics, we felt a lot of hakarat tov to the American president. And the mayors, we made 2 presents for him, 2 gifts we gifted him in the White House. One thing we gave them was a replica of this coin. Remember, this is the same president that recognized Jerusalem as our eternal capital. The second thing was a local artist took these pieces of jewelry that were found in Gamla that belonged to that Jewish lady escaping from the Romans in 67 when the city is destroyed, and she made a necklace for the first lady from making a replica of that jewelry. So that's just another point where we took that historical connection and made it alive. Any other questions? You go for it, I'll answer.
Thank you, Yaakov. So we've got a couple of other questions, and I'm going to summarize them all into one final question, which I think is you can take us home. And that question is really, what do you feel or predict the future is going to hold? Specifically, there was a question about what is Israel going to do about the current violence in Jerusalem? But even longer term, do you feel good? In between, what do you think the future holds for Jerusalem and Israel?
Wow. I thought I was intense. That's an intense question. Let's start talking about what's happening right now as we speak in Jerusalem. It's very hard for me to discuss. I think it's happening right now. Every little tactical event, if God forbid, one person dies on each side, everything can go, right, be very turbulent. So I'm praying that first of all, things will settle down. Jerusalem Day will be over, Ramadan will be over, and maybe things will settle down. That's what I pray for. It's very hard for me to talk about what I think we should do because my expertise is military affairs, and I think this is more interior security, police. I will give a broader perspective, which I hope, I think we're in some sort of watershed line, which unfortunately is tilting one way, but it's still not too late. If you would ask me this question a little bit over half a year ago, I would tell you the future is very bright. I just finished briefing a group from Bahrain, United Arab Nations, Saudi Arabia is standing in line, Iran is pulling troops away from the border because there's no things. And it looks like more and more bridges are being built, with the Arab and Muslim world. Within Israel, this past November, I was accepted to a leadership program. We are 18 young social activists from the Galilee and the Golan. And I don't know if you guys know, in this region, we're not the majority. Most of the Galilee and the Golan is not Jewish. We have Druze, we have Arabs, Muslims, Christians, and 50% of this program, I have Arabs, Muslims. They're fasting in these days. And this was just one project out of many where we said, we don't agree on many things, right? I don't agree with you on Al-Aqsa, right? But we have so much in common. And we spoke about the low income, etc. Why punish ourselves because we don't disagree on one specific thing if we can build bridges? Look, there's peace with countries in the Gulf, and we guys, we're living together, city, town, village by village. Why can't we be friends? And we're working now on different programs, Jews and Arabs, Muslims, together to bridge the gap. So when I take these things, this is the bright future. And we see it, by the way, I'm not going to go into politics, but we see it also in the political movements where the Arab parties are working on, right? It became legitimate to build a future with them. We don't agree on many things, but you can see it gives me a bright future. On the other hand, I'll say that when I talk to you now 7 months later, half a year later, we see the Iranians are gaining more and more confidence. The sanctions are about to go down the drain. The money is going to start running into Iran and deals. And of course, the money is not going to go to their collapsing economy. It's not going to go to the people who are now in a disaster because of COVID. It's going to go to the guys here in Syria. It's going to go to Hezbollah. It's going to go to Hamas. And that's why I'm very worried. 2020 was some sort of watershed line. And unfortunately, it looks like the international community is allowing it to go in a very negative way. And that's why, with all the optimistic thing, I think on one hand, I'm very worried. On the other hand, it's not my job to start dealing with those strategic issues. What I can do is continue building the bridges here with the people who live around me. And I can tell you, even now, as we speak, I have here on our WhatsApp group text messages. Let's talk tomorrow about a leadership program for graduates from Arab high schools. We have a plan talking about helping Arab women and Haredi women, ultra-Orthodox women in the Galilee have higher incomes. With everything happening in Jerusalem, we're still working together. So I'll end on that note. I want to end on a positive note.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yaakov. And once again, thank you for maintaining that first line of defense, because as you say, it's going to take a multi-pronged approach to get the best results. We've got so many more questions. I've got hands raised in the audience. I'm sorry we haven't got time. But if you do send us your questions in the chat, we will forward them on to Yaakov, and he can.
I'll put my email address right here.
Wonderful, thank you.
You know, I'll also put on the screen in a second my Facebook, my Instagram. Feel free, go for it, and thank you so much again.
Thank you. To wrap things up, and to also please give you an official vote of thanks, it's my pleasure to introduce Michael Seif, the Executive Director of the South African Zionist Federation.
Thank you. Thank you. Big thank you, Yaakov. It was so fascinating how and thought-provoking how history and current affairs just merge, and it was a pleasure to hear your stories, and just I must say, I feel proud and assured that there's yourself and people like you who are really doing the job that we are so fortunate to have as Am Yisrael, and a big hakarat tov to you and to your family and to people like you, and we in South Africa and around the world really appreciate this, and I just wanted to echo that, and I was going to say, enjoy your ice cream. You deserve it, not only for your talk but for so much more, and maybe one day we'll get you biltong and we'll do a more South African focused thing, and again, thank you to the whole team from the Fed and from our wonderful partners Mizrachi for putting this together, and of course all the participants. It's been a pleasure to see so many people coming on the call and asking interesting questions, and I think we may, Yaakov, we may have to lean on you again and do something similar in the future. So we really look forward to that, and wish everybody a Chag Sameach, a Yom Yerushalayim Sameach, and it's great to have this bigger insight into what it really means for us, and we really give everybody hakarat tov. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Yom Yerushalayim Sameach.
Thank you so much, Michael and Yaakov and everybody. Before we go, I would like to mention two upcoming events that you might want to know about. On Monday, the 10th of May, there is the Yom Yerushalayim Rikud Degalim, which is the annual flag parade. You can join the celebrations live from Mizrachi World Center in the heart of Jerusalem. There are all the details there, so don't miss that. And coming up on the 20th of June is a virtual Aliyah Expo. So save that date. You'll have experts on hand to talk about all your Aliyah related questions. So those are our two events that are still coming up. Once again, Yom Yerushalayim Sameach, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thanks for joining us.